That's no virtual background there, Matt. You want people to
Yeah.
see
No, I've got the Christmas. I've
Santa?
got the little Christmas Santa. It's Christmas, mate. We have some festive spirit.
That might think of nothing.
Do you got a Santa hat or something?
No.
That's all right. We'll roll with it like this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to some more content from Secure the Bag. Usually this would be the podcast, and usually there'd be three of us. Unfortunately, Anthony's out on the town again, COVID and that. And we are going to do a little OT. So we didn't actually have that many games on the weekend. Usually we'd be sitting here discussing the games, but we only had a couple games and they were terrible. They were really average and not really worth talking about. Man City stormed to victory. Chelsea can't score, issues we've talked about again and again. And I'm sure we'll talk about again and again before the season's over.
Among some other issues as well, but we won't mention those about West Ham. The other two games missed out on was Tottenham tying with Liverpool 2-2 with a Liverpool red card, and as well as that, Arsenal beating Leeds United 4-1. So we only had 4 games this game week. Obviously, as everyone knows, as the Omicron variant of COVID starts making its way around the world, and we've seen the Premier League have sort of a mixed response between players, managers, and what the league is actually going to go forward with. So I think it's prevalent we should start talking about that first, Jackson.
Yeah.
So do you want to start us off with that? What do you think? Because I know the Premier League have agreed. The Premier League clubs have agreed to continue with their Christmas schedule, despite I think it was about 10 or 12 fixtures being postponed due to the COVID-19 cases. So
and it'll be more. It's going to be more. It's not going to be 12. It'll probably come up to over 20 matches. Now, the problem is if you just postpone individual games, you mess up random teams' fixture lists. It's going to be an absolute mess. What should have happened is that they declared 2 weeks. Okay, you've got 2 weeks, no games. Then we'll continue. We'll push the season on 2 weeks. I mean, they did it for COVID, and that was way longer than 2 weeks for the original 1920 season. They can do it for just 2 weeks this time. And what they do is they tell the clubs, in that 2 weeks, you have a responsibility to get players vaccinated. How many Premier League players, as a percentage matter, vaccinated?
All right, so I've done some little bit of research, and 16% of Premier League players are actually unvaccinated at the moment. As well as that, 84% of the players are on the vaccination journey, which that obviously means they're either fully vaccinated or they've had one shot. And also, just to add in there, I believe it was 92% of all of staff and players combined have had at least one dose.
Yeah, and when was that? When did that data come out?
That data come out yesterday morning on the 21st of December.
So when the Omicron variant first came out, I guarantee you that figure was way higher in terms of players unvaccinated. Because what I know is that, West Ham, for instance, when their Norwich game was postponed, they used that opportunity to get the unvaccinated players in the squad to go, hey, it's time, you get vaccinated. I reckon there's a large percentage of those players that have only one dose because it's only recently just come. They've only just been pressured because clubs weren't doing enough. Players were able to just sort of get by without being forced to vaccinate. And when you've got unvaccinated players on the pitch, there's liability concerns, I'm sure. There's all sorts of issues. The clubs had to postpone games. And like Tottenham were the first example. Their squad was knocked out by COVID.
Exactly. They were basically playing academy players to try and make up the numbers. And I mean, if you look back to the numbers that had come out before this most recent ones yesterday, it was back in October, and that revealed that only 68% of the players or of the stars had been double vaccinated. And that sort of really sees the Premier League come into fire because they really have a reluctance to release these, the vaccination rates of their players.
Yeah. Because I guarantee you, don't cancel me, anyone, for what you're about to hear. But there are some culture groups within the playing squads that come from countries where vaccine misinformation is incredibly prevalent. Not to mention, these are not the most mature people. Football players are not very mature. look at the French football group. We won't get into that now, but it's bad. Football players are not the best at handling these issues. I mean, there's a couple more mature players in the squad. I think Dean Henderson's a really good example of a very mature player in football. And N'Golo Kante is another one. But there's very few of those kind of players who've actually had life experiences. A lot of these people have been playing since they were kids, and they remain kids.
Yeah, that's it. It's basically giving a big kid a $200,000 weekly paycheck. Yeah,
and that doesn't mean that suddenly they're great, public citizens.
No.
So the problem is, I'm going to point out the Brazilians are what I am most concerned about. I think that if you actually looked at the data, you could find significant cultural groups that make up the unvaccinated, or if we ever get the data of earlier, they would have made up their large group. I reckon that the clubs, I want to know what methods the clubs are using to push players to finally get it done. Are they saying you won't be picked in the match day squad? Are they saying, do they have the legal basis to say we can fine you if you don't get your vaccination? I'm interested, and nobody's talked about it. So it's hard to say.
Just on that, Jackson, do you think it'll be more the players that have, I guess, backgrounds from countries that were red zoned I think it was about a month or 2 months back when they were doing their international team, international games and stuff, international breaks?
I'd actually say it's hard to say, is it? It's hard to say.
Because the red zone was in, I believe, that there was a red zone in Brazil, wasn't there?
Yeah. But it's more, it's hard to say. I almost would have thought that being in a red zone country would mean that, you would want to get vaccinated.
More. Yeah, that's
You'd push it more. But I think it's more, I highlight Brazil because I know that because of two things. There is a large Brazilian contingent of players across the Premier League.
There is.
And I know enough about the personalities of a couple of them to think they're the kind of individuals who would buy into that misinformation back home.
Okay.
So I know the political scene of Brazil with Bolsonaro, there is COVID misinformation around him, and I know that some of them are big fans. There's a bit of the evidence isn't great, but they're the most clear group that I could point to. Otherwise, it would just be individual holdouts from different cultures.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's English players as well that would be a big problem, but none springs to mind that I'd be able to identify. But they exist everywhere.
Yeah. Well, you can't definitely narrow it down to I guess one background or one nationality.
No.
Because obviously there's going to be people from all walks of life that don't want to get the vaccination. I mean,
yeah.
it's sort of their choice. But when you're a professional player in the league like this, you got to understand the league's a business as well. It's not just it's not just something for fun, like you go down and play a Sunday league soccer match or something like that. Like this is one of the biggest leagues in the world for professional football, and something that's going to be taken seriously. And I mean, the Premier League, they've sort of taken that view where they come out on Monday morning, I believe, earlier this week, and have announced that their festive fire break that the coaches and the players were pushing for would not be imposed. And not be imposed to help combat the spread of the Omicron virus, with officials continuing to monitor the situation closely. That's what I've read. But I've also got in front of me that there were 90 new positive cases that were detected, and that was almost double. That was last week, and that was almost double the previous week. And despite that, teams are still going to play 3 games between Boxing Day and the 3rd of January. And that's Premier League games, not to mention other games, Carabao Cup, which we'll get into a bit later in the podcast. I mean, I think there's 8 teams in the Carabao Cup quarterfinals, and 7 of them are Premier League teams.
Yeah.
So not to mention that they're going to be 4 games to some of those teams. And it's going to be, I guess, a matter of time before we start seeing, more cases like this if players aren't vaccinated, because that percentage is very shocking. I mean, it was 16%, I believe I said earlier, 16% of all top 5 players. And you look at this like a squad, those top 5 players, that a team is not just the team that they put out on match day. It's not their starting 11 and not just their bench. It's also the other players in the top team as well that train with them. It'll be also their coaching staffs and all the support staff, the managers, the gaffer, all that stuff like that. So you're really thinking, it's not like the 18 players that they put out on match day or 15 players they bring out on that match day sheet. It's actually a lot more than that. So that 16% is very concerning for me.
Yeah. And if COVID takes out a couple backroom staff, it can devastate a team's training regimen. I mean, the big shout out to Jurgen Klopp. He came out pretty strong on vaccines. I imagine he's really on his players, which is why I don't think I probably think there's probably no Liverpool players that would fit into that unvaccinated category. Simply by the way Jurgen's come out about it. I don't think if he felt there was still players in his camp that were unvaccinated, he wouldn't have come out so strongly. He'd be focused on getting them vaccinated.
That's it.
But yeah, otherwise I haven't heard much from managers. But I know a bunch of managers have had COVID. I mean, Eddie Howe had COVID for his first game in charge. David Moyes had COVID a while back.
I mean, the league is sort of doing stuff to try and pick it up a bit earlier, I guess. With respect to players not wanting to have vaccinations or being unvaccinated, this, that, and the other. But they're also doing lateral flow testing, where they're getting if staff wanted to enter, say, the training grounds, they have to have PCR tests carried out twice weekly. They've got to have those negative tests twice weekly so they can get in, which I think is reasonable. I think it's reasonable.
Yeah.
Considering the situation they're in, 90 positive cases last week. That's quite a lot.
Yeah. And I know they're trialing all sorts of different things because nobody wants to shut game, play behind closed doors again. They want players to be safe. They want crowds to be safe. They want staff to be safe. I stick by what I said, that the best thing to do would be to give 2 weeks. So, one of the benefits of that is that you give clubs the time to vaccinate players and staff, and 2, you let them set up the kind of facilities they need to check vaccinations of spectators, of audience members, because at the moment they don't have the stewards. I know a lot of clubs were complaining we don't have the stewards to check everyone, but give it 2 weeks and you hire the stewards you need to do that.
You're generating jobs as well. And, I don't know if this can be the right way to categorize, I guess, audience members that are there, but I know fair bit of the demographic there would be early to maybe mid to late 20s as well. And just looking at what the NHS vaccination rate for in England for 25 to 29 year olds, the single dose vaccination is only 78.5%, and the average age of a Premier League player is 26.9. So a lot of Premier League players are right in that age group, and a lot of spectators would be right in that age group as well.
Well, you'd be surprised. There's be a lot of elderly people.
There would be a lot of elderly and a lot of younger players. But I'm just thinking from experience, having a good time out with the lads going to watch a game. So that's why I said I might not necessarily be correct with categorizing the demographic like that, but that's I guess maybe a contributing factor as well.
Yeah,
I guess we'll be able to see this a bit more in the coming months. So the Premier League has shown they're going to have greater transparency, and they're going to publish their vaccination results at the end of each month now.
Yeah. And that is what we would like to see. But some would say that players who are holding out against vaccinations should be named and shamed, but I don't know if that would work too well, putting their names out there. I think there's better ways to push them to get vaccinated within the clubs than putting their name out there and seeing what happens. It's a rough time. I don't want to see closed doors again. I don't want to see what happens there. I really just want the season to continue. But if I had to go 2 weeks without games, I'd take that for the rest of the season to pan out as normal. I'm a fan of a winter break anyway. We should have one. The Germans have one. We should have one.
That's it. Speaking of Germany, Dortmund star Jude Bellingham he's had both of the vaccinations, and he's also had the booster as well. And he's been urging other players to get vaccinated to get the booster, get whatever they have to do to protect themselves.
You think English football is bad? Well, goddamn, show up in like Turkish football and people are like, "What vaccine? I don't know what you're talking about." The Russians are like, "I'm sorry, I don't understand. I don't understand." But Germany is especially bad. I don't know how much this has infected the football because, I mean, to be fair, a lot of these players are international, though Germany's got a fair share of German footballers playing. There's a lot of vaccine hesitancy in Germany. Like their vaccination rate is really bad on a national level. So we're ahead of them by a significant amount. So you wonder how much that affects the actual German players in the Bundesliga. I would be interested. The data's just not out there. I would like to see the information because there's probably a lot that's not going right. There's obviously not enough pressure being put on non-vaccinated players. So Matt, would you say, I mean, I've made my stance on this clear, but would you want to go 2-week break from now and put the games on the end of the season or continue as we go and postpone individual games?
Or I have to stand by you. I honestly think the best thing is a 2-week break. I mean, you try and catch it early. And like set up for the rest of the season all your preventative measures, like you mentioned before, hiring more stewards to check vaccinations, because getting those PCR tests into the clubs and doing whatever you have to, implementing I guess fines or not being put onto the match day like team sheet if you're not vaccinated and stuff like that, to sort of incentivize the players to actually get vaccinated, the ones that aren't.
Okay.
So that's my stance. I think 2-week break now is probably better than going the rest of the season and having more than 100 plus cases a week.
Yeah. And when you think about it, that 2 weeks gives you the time to get the last few to get their first dose. I mean, it takes 3 weeks between your first and your second dose of Pfizer. And I don't think a lot of these players are getting AstraZeneca. If I'm honest with you, I think they're getting Pfizer. So with that said, a lot of the people with their first dose would get their second dose in that 2-week break if it started now. There's just no argument against it. I don't know why the Premier League's chosen to go the other way. The club's obviously consented to pushing on ahead as is. It's just going to be chaos. I mean, I really hope clubs that are unaffected aren't just going to go, oh, there's an advantage here. The clubs that are getting ravaged will be poorer in the games, because eventually it'll happen to you. Like West Ham don't have many cases right now, but it'll happen, and then our squad's already paper thin.
That's what I was saying. Like 2-week break now is better than going on the rest of the season and watching your team get devolved.
Yeah, it's too unpredictable. Like how this disease will pan out for every club. It's wrong decision. I think it's the wrong decision they've chosen to take. But on that, I mean, that's it for the Dower news. So yeah, let us know, guys. I'm sure everyone's got their own opinion on this one about postponement. We've made our stance clear, and I'm sure I'll post stuff on Twitter about the need for postponement. Nobody will listen to me, but we'll see how we go.
And please, the leagues around the world, please release your vaccination stats.
Can we have the data, please?
We would like to have the data so we can make some graphs and present them to our viewers.
I want to know if my argument about the Brazilians is correct. So give me the data, please.
I mean, I guess I don't think they'll give us that much detail in the data. I think they'll give us general data. I don't think they'll give us down to what players are vaccinated, what players are. But to back up your theory, if they could give us sort of vaccinations of nationalities playing in the league, then that could sort of back it up. But I don't think they're going to put out specific players that aren't vaccinated.
Yeah. All right. Okay. With that said, we've got a couple other mini topics to talk about before we wrap up this OT. As we said, not a lot of games played, but we do have games in the next 12 hours, don't we, Matt?
We do. The Carabao Cup, we've got 3 games. We have both of our teams are playing, actually. Anthony's team isn't playing, that's why he's not here. But no, we've got Chelsea play Brentford, Liverpool play Leicester City, and Tottenham plays West Ham. And we already had Arsenal played Sunderland, I think it was this morning, and Arsenal, couldn't believe it from them. Such a poor performance. They conceded a goal against Sunderland, but they won 5-1.
I'm just saying, out of Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, West Ham easily got the hardest draw. Chelsea got Brentford, Arsenal got Sunderland, and Liverpool got Leicester. West Ham beat any of that opposition.
Mate, you've got a COVID ravaged Tottenham team on you.
Oh, but I'm sure they'll be back by then. Like, enough players will be back for them to, and we're average. Like, we've just got injuries up the wazoo. Like, I heard Ben Johnson's coming back though, so that'll be nice. And I heard Cresswell's coming back, but no Ogbonna, no Zuma. And until we get Tarkovsky, I don't trust that defense. That defense, bad.
I've got the Tottenham lineup that they went out against Liverpool.
Yeah, throw it up
at the end of the week. So Lloris in goal, Emerson Royale, Sanchez, Dyer, Davies, and Sessegnon at the back. So played 5 at the back. Ndombele, Winks, and Ali in the middle, and then Kane and Son up front. So they played a 5-3-2 against Liverpool.
Yeah. Okay.
So
all right.
I wouldn't be surprised if they play something similar to you against you. I mean, they've obviously had Reguilon on the bench. They had Tanganga, they had Mora, they had Oliver Skip. Those are really the most notable names on the bench.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. It's not a bad Tottenham team. It's the same it's about the same strength as the Tottenham team we beat 1-0 earlier on in the season, but we are not the same team as we were then, with our best centre-backs both injured. So this will be a loss, I reckon.
I definitely reckon that there will be some goals in this game. You will concede with the likes of how Son, Kane, and Mora are linking up at the moment. I definitely think West Ham's going to concede in this game.
I wouldn't be too cocky on Conte playing that kind of football, but he's.
I'm not too cocky, but I'm saying your 2 best centre backs are currently out.
Yeah, but we. Yeah, I still think Diop and Dawson will do enough to sort of keep it from being too bad. But we will struggle. I'm not expecting to win this game. And if it's a Carabao Cup draw, so this will go to penalties, won't it? If it's a draw,
yeah. It will.
I'm not sure whether we'd even go all that good in penalties with the injuries. So.
Yeah, I was about to say who's gonna take your penalties? Like you'll have Bowen taking one of them.
Bowen, Declan,
Antonio,
Noble if he gets subbed on.
Yeah.
Antonio, Cresswell if he's on.
Or Fornals.
Yeah, Fornals. Yeah, there's players there to take penalties. But not a great penalty lineup. Lanzini would take them if it was bad. Like, there's players there that can take penalties. I don't know if we have a better penalty taking squad. If you took Noble out, probably we're the same, if not slightly worse at penalties than Tottenham. But I don't know. This game is the toughest one out of the bunch, whereas Chelsea get to play Brentford, who are, despite all the football hipsters and what they say, Brentford are not good.
Let's just have a look. They're 12th in the Premier League at the moment. Their last 5 games, going from the most recent one, was a win, a draw, a loss, a win, and a draw.
Yeah. Their form is like on and off. It's an all right squad and they've got a great attitude, but they are going to go down next season. I reckon I call it now. This is the kind of team that gets hit with second season syndrome. It's very obvious. It's almost too predictable.
Second season syndrome. This is their first season up.
Yeah, but they will go down next season.
Oh, next season. I thought you said
no, they'll go down next season because they will stay up this season because there's worse teams, but they will go down next season because they're playing out of their skins right now. It's actually a really bang average squad. And they'll try and develop and grab like a big signing. Like, they remind me of Huddersfield like a lot.
When they get some good wins. Huddersfield signed Aaron Moy and they try to project themselves a bit higher in the Premier League, and they ultimately failed.
Congolo, they spent like 20 million on Congolo. Like,
yeah,
they're just, it gives me that vibes. Like Sheffield United's the same. Like, just a very subpar, like, not actually a good team on paper, and those teams don't last all that long.
A lot of teams are like that. And I'm honestly surprised that Burnley's been up in the Premier League for this long.
But that's the difference. Defensively solid teams stick around somehow.
Well, defense wins games, wins championships.
But Brentford aren't especially great defensively.
No.
But the attack can't, like, I just see them running out of steam next season. They don't bring in the signings to stay up. And I think a lot of the teams will be better next season. I think any season that Norwich is in the Premier League, you've got, like, you're going to have an easier relegation battle, but they won't be in the league next season. So see how it goes.
Well, so yeah, Brentford, just looking at what you were saying, you know, they've conceded 22 goals this season, but they've scored 21. Yeah. So they're currently a -1 goal difference. And, you know, 5 wins, 5 draws, 6 losses. Yeah. Which, that might be enough to keep them up this season. But, next season.
Sheffield United were very good defensively in their first season, but it all fell apart. Burnley are consistently hard to play. They don't have great this season, which is why I think they're going to go down this season because the defense is finally falling apart. But Brentford just seem to me like a team that's overperforming beyond their wildest hopes and dreams. I just see that not lasting. But yeah, and then that leaves Liverpool versus Leicester, who I honestly think Leicester are like one of the easiest teams to face right now. Brentford can still throw out like a wild performance and do something crazy. Leicester, we beat them 4-1. I can't remember how Chelsea went, but I remember you guys beating them, 4-0? 3-0, something like that. Yeah. Not a great performance from Leicester there either.
I mean, the last game they played in the Premier League, they won 4-0, but that was against a Newcastle who had only just recently been taken over by Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
And the goals had come from Yuri Tillemans' penalty, another Yuri Tillemans out of the field of play goal, a Daka goal, and a James Maddison goal.
Yeah. So, all right, Matt, to wrap it up then, tell me, Matt, predict the result for these 3 games, these 3 Carabao Cup games.
These 3 Carabao Cup games. Chelsea's going to win 2-0 against Brentford. Liverpool is going to win 3-2 against Leicester. And West Ham is going to win 2-1 against Tottenham.
I'm surprised you could even say like 3-2. I thought you'd still be traumatized by that number. That's crazy.
I was gonna say 3-1, but I think Yuri Tillemans might get a goal. If not, Patson Daka will. And you know, I think one of them might get a lucky goal towards the end of the game.
Fair enough. So. I agree with all those results. I would probably say 1-1 for West Ham Tottenham and a penalty win either way. But yeah, I could agree with the other 2. I think Liverpool and Chelsea go through. Overall winner of the competition, though, that's the tough one, isn't it? Because Man City won't win it. It's the end of an era. Chelsea would be the boring pick, I think, though.
It'd be the boring pick, but you've got to back your boys. That's what I'm doing.
You do. I would love to see. I honestly think I'd love to see Liverpool take it. Honestly, I mean, if West Ham get knocked out, I don't want Tottenham to win it. I don't want Arsenal to win it, and I don't want Chelsea to win it. So let's just sort of leaves Liverpool as the non-London team there. So I would like to see Liverpool win a cup. They haven't had the chance to do it. I'd love to see it. Let's see it happen. All right. Fair. That leaves us to the final topic that we want to discuss, which was some January stuff. So expect a good bit of transfer content from us. I'm sure a bunch of the OTs in January will be transfer focused.
Yep.
So having said that, Matt, tell me, what is one transfer you want to see happen in January?
We all know what we're going to talk about. Lingardinho to Newcastle.
He doesn't want to go, mate. He doesn't want to go to Newcastle. They're struggling to convince him. They're like, come play for us. You will love it so much you will try throw yourself off a bridge into like the ocean.
Well, there's a lot of media hype around it at the moment. Newcastle have some money with their financial fair play. Jesse Lingard, he's been getting some minutes at Man United, but I don't know how he fits into Ragnick's role. He got some game time underneath like Gunnar Solskjaer, but under Ragnick, I don't think he plays at all. I think he's a player that loses out from them. Mm-hmm. So I think he's got to move. And I haven't heard of any other clubs besides West Ham trying to offer him something. Mm-hmm. So
I've heard Aston Villa, Newcastle, West Ham. The links are there. But the funny thing the media's done is that Lingard has shown he's not interested in Newcastle. So the media has gone, if he doesn't want to go to Newcastle, he wants to stay at Manchester United and fight for his place. I'm like, no, no, he does not. He hasn't signed a new contract. Seen no evidence that Ragnick is going to include him in his system. Like, if Lingard adopted that attitude, it would take like 10 days of January for Lingard to realize that he's not getting game minutes and want to leave. And he will go to West Ham. I really think that's the likely outcome. And by God, we need him. So he will, I think he comes to West Ham. I don't think he cares. Like, I've said it before. I reckon that January will be the month where my views on Newcastle are vindicated. And I can shove it to Anthony, because Luka Modric will not come to Newcastle this January. So deal with that, Anthony. You've been called out. It's going to be like a strange window for Newcastle where I think they'll make some like okay signings. Maybe that'll be enough to keep them up. I think it depends more on how the manager uses them than the signings themselves. I just don't think it's attractive. Like, the media, they're talking about Lingard going to Newcastle, and they assume that if he's not going, it's because he loves Manchester United more. No, it's because that move is not attractive. Like, for Lingard, he's 28 years old. He wants to be playing at a high level now, and he wants to be in the middle of an ambitious club that's trying to get somewhere. Newcastle are in the relegation zone. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest. They go down, they come back up, and try and hit, and Lingard's already past his 30th birthday.
That's true. That's very true.
He's in his prime.
I guess so. He's in his prime. Doesn't really get many minutes at at Manchester United. So yeah, he's got to make a move somewhere. Yeah. And I think Newcastle, like I mentioned in our great debate video, I think they're going to make signings to keep them up this season. And they'll make it a couple signings in January just to propel themselves out of the relegation zone. And then next year they can start building from there. But yeah, Lingard, if I'm honest, the Newcastle, it's semi-appealing just because of how, I guess they can give him a good payday. But at the same time, you don't want to be going there just for the money. If it's a dirt team like Newcastle, sorry, all the Newcastle fans, don't come at me for calling your team dirt, because honestly, over the past few years, there have been. All right, you've been starting John Shelby in the midfield, okay? So calm down. But look, he has to go to a more of an ambitious team, and I guess West Ham is a team in that sort of contention. Aston Villa, you can sort of see some links as well, but I mean, last year he was loaned out to West Ham, so there's already a spot there for him. He knows how to play in their system. The systems work well for him. He come over there and he did blossom a little bit over there. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think if he does move, he will go to West Ham.
Yeah, I think that's the right one. But got to think as well, imagine being one of those suckers playing for Newcastle now. You know that in 5 years' time, if the Newcastle project turns out well, you're going to be viewed as the trash bin, the worst Newcastle's had, the old past. The club's gonna not want to talk about you and your career. Where is your motivation at that point?
Well, let's just list some of the players off that are in the Newcastle team at the moment. Look, Alan St. Maximin, John Joe Shelby, Joe Willock, Callum Wilson, Joel Linton, Dubravka, he's been in goals for ages. Longstaff, Matt Ritchie, Lascelles, these type of players here, you're not gonna really be talking about them if this project does come to fruition. Yeah. The ones that do stick around, I mean, you can see, I guess, St. Maximin might stick around. You might have some of the other players that do stay, and if those players,
Wilson will stay around.
Wilson will stay. They possibly will keep John Joe Shelby, because I don't think any other club will take him. So, those players that do stick around, they will get talked about if this Newcastle United, buying and I guess sort of giving them a facelift works. Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't work, like Jackson said, they're going to be frowned upon for their time at Newcastle.
Yeah. Eddie Howe's got a big task on his hand to make those players feel like they're still wanted at the club and not just sort of players that they're desperately trying to replace and who aren't good enough for the new owners. But yeah, with that said, that actually wraps up our time for this OT. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, follow, like as you go if you appreciate the content. And be sure to check out upcoming content. We'll have a preview vid soon. We'll have the next podcast on Monday, Tuesday. And expect more content in the future. And we'll see you guys later. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year. Hopefully
Merry Christmas.
Putting out more videos as well before the new year comes around, but I just want to get it in now. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks for listening, guys. Catch up.
Yeah.